Hi, this is John Darch here. Ken's just loading up the presentation. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, here's Bernie now. He's joining us now. That's good. So it's a few names and friends I recognize on here. So welcome.
Okay,
Ken, I think you're almost ready to go.
just about ready. Oh, it's
Good.
keeping.
Well,
Brandon is asking me to admit people.
Yeah, I'm taking care of all the admissions. You go ahead and I'll manage that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, folks, for joining us today. Sorry for the folks who had come in a little bit earlier and had a bit of a longer wait. Welcome to everybody, friends, investors, shareholders. Special welcome to our friends in Germany who've joined us. I know it's very, very late. Next time we'll try to have a webinar for you at a time when it's more appropriate in Germany. So once again, welcome to Sonoro. Welcome to the Cerro Caliche project update. And the picture you're seeing in front of you on the screen is the Cerro Caliche area where we're doing the drilling program. And think of that entire area in front of you as highly mineralized in the future. That will be the scene of several large open pits. Okay, so on to the forward-looking statements. We had those on the screen at the very beginning, so we'll go to the next screen. And this particular forward-looking statement, I will read it out verbatim because it is important from the legal perspective. The company is continuing to advance its conceptual fast-track development schedule for the Cerro Caliche project with the aspirational goal of commencing gold production by the end of 2021. A successful realization of that goal remains subject to certain material conditions, most notably including the satisfactory completion of metallurgical testing, securing required environmental permitting, a favorable preliminary economic assessment, and the availability of project financing. As an important step in the execution of its plans, Sonoro has engaged two independent consulting firms to provide NI 43-101 compliant technical reports regarding a proposed heap leach mining operation. So without any further ado, we'll go into the project highlights. And obviously, all of you know that we secured an $8 million financing in September, and we've been putting that to good use. Our objectives have in the main been achieved and in quite a few instances surpassed. As of December the 15th, we will have drilled approximately 4,000 meters of core drilling and 7,000 meters of reverse circulation drilling, of which 11 metallurgical test holes were derived from the core drilling, and these metallurgical test holes were larger diameter, PQ sized, and they've been sent off to the lab for metallurgical testing. So that gives us a total drilling to date of almost 35,000 meters at the project. Now, we have identified 4 substantial high-grade zones and multiple zones that still have to be investigated, and we will investigate over the coming couple of years. We expect the drilling to terminate for the Christmas season on December the 15th, and by the first week of January, we will be back in action with the drilling again. And then I'm getting more requests coming in as we speak here. We've engaged the metallurgical laboratory in Reno, Nevada called McClellan Laboratories, which is one of the top metallurgical testing facilities in North America. They have started the testing procedure, and it's going to take an estimated 4 months or so to get the full suite of testing, including the probably around 3 months of column leach testing. We've also engaged Micon International out of Toronto to provide us with a resource report, 43101 type of resource report, and they have extensive experience in putting together evaluations for mining companies in Mexico and specifically in Sonora State. We've also engaged Denham Engineering out of Ontario to produce the PEA for us. They will be responsible for bringing together all the reports from the company and McClellan Laboratories plus Micon International into one final PEA, Once again, Denim Engineering, under the direction of Dave Solari, has been very, very engaged in northern Mexico and actually spent quite a few years of working in northern Mexico in the Magdalena area. So he's very familiar with the territory. The next item on the agenda will be the environmental permit, which of course is the only real governmental approval that is required for building a mine in Mexico. There are other factors that you need to support that, but the bottom line is once you have the environmental permit, that'll enable you to start construction. So we're online for commencing production in Q4 2021. And based upon the initial assessment for an 8,000 ton a day throughput, that we're carrying out the investigation into determining the economics of that at this point in time. And that will be forwarded to the engineers and Denim Engineering to take it to the PEA level. I'm not moving forward with the next, there we go. Location-wise, in northern Mexico, this is a map of Sonora State, and it is probably one of the finest areas in Mexico to conduct your mining business. We're surrounded by producing mines. Some of the larger ones, such as Herradura in the northern part of the state, have been operating for many, many years. Surrounding us within a 30-kilometer radius, we have 9 kilometers to the southeast, the Mercedes mine, operated by Premier Gold. Adjacent to us to the west is the Cerro Prieto mine, and to the north is the newly acquired the Santa Gertrudis project, which was acquired 2 years ago by Agnico Eagle, and they're in the process of building it up to what I expect to be a 2 million ounce project in the near future. To the west of us is the San Francisco mine, and these are the key elements of production in and surrounding Magdalena. We're sitting on a conceptual epithermal model here, which is applicable to many, many parts of Sonora State and other parts of Mexico and the southern United States, the western United States. We have found that the feed for the mineralization at Cerro Caliche is following the pattern that is shown on this this cross section here, and we'll talk about that as we go along. This map here shows the 1,400 hectare concession, shows some of the major mines that, or the mines that operated 50 to 100 years ago on a small scale with the itinerant miners in the region. The trend for the mineralization in this part of the world is fairly consistent. It runs southeast to northwest. And as you can see here, we're looking towards the northwest in this map here. And if you draw a line from the Española through the Abejas, through the Veta de Oro to El Rincon, there is a specific trend running through that particular zone. Then you have to the west, you have the Japoneses and the Gloria zone. And the Cuervo zone to the south. That's definitely another trend. Then off to the west, you have Cabeza Blanca and El Colorado. So we have multiple zones on the property that we have investigated partially, and others that we have not even started to investigate yet. This particular map gives you another closer view of that same trend that we talked about in the previous map. There are 4 distinctive zones that we have now identified as being prospective for developing a mineral resource. Now, the one to the right, the far right, is the one we announced 2 days ago in the news release, which showed grades of approximately 1 gram per ton on average for gold equivalent in the Rincon zone, which is the uppermost zone just off that map. And it ties into the Veta de Oro zone, which is the big green blob at the north end of the map there. And both these zones are estimated right now at being capable of producing producing mineralization in the order of about a gram per ton on a gold equivalent basis. And when you add the next green blob to the southeast to that, which is the Abejas project, you're looking at over 2 kilometers of strike length, continuous mineralization, and we'll fully investigate that over the coming months and probably over the next year as well. The next zone would be one to the second from the right, which is the Japoneses zone. In the 43-101 of last year, this particular zone was probably in the order of about 900 meters in length. And through additional extension drilling and infill drilling over the past 4 months now, we have been able to extend it to at least 1.3 kilometers. And we've done a lot of infilling of gaps in the mineralization over that period of time as well. We initially felt that was probably going to be the likeliest candidate for production once we're in a position to start mining in this particular property. In the next zone to the west is the Buena Suerte zone. This one had us very, very excited a couple of weeks ago, and that there was no credit given to this particular zone in last year's 43-101 resource report. This zone only had 2 holes last year, and now we've probably up to around 10 or 11 holes so far, and we're starting to build up constant and consistent mineralization in the zone. And in fact, the grades are higher than in the surrounding zones as well. So we feel very comfortable that some of the higher grades in the Buena Suerte zone will eventually lead to a higher grade within the zone itself and make it possibly more attractive from a mining perspective if as and when we get to that stage over the coming year. Then we have off to the west the Cabeza Blanca El Colorado zone. And this particular zone, once again, we've typically higher grades than we've had in other parts of the concession. The Cabeza Blanca zone is under drilling right now. We had a few holes there done last year. And once again, the grades were higher, an averaging of 0.7, 0.8 grams. And down in the Colorado zone, we had good grades in that zone as well. And so we've been focusing our efforts on defining the potential for that particular zone. And probably next week we will have more assay results from that particular zone, which we will announce. And we have great expectations for the Colorado zone. This gives you an idea of some of the grades that we've encountered throughout these particular zones. And at the end of the day, some of these zones may end up blending into one larger potential open pit. And I'll start off with Buena Suerte. We've got 45 meters effectively from surface, from 3 meters down. You've got a grade with a gold equivalent, it was over 1 gram. And other grades there would be 10 meters of just over 1 gram, 6 meters of 4 grams. That is fairly consistent throughout the Buena Suerte zone. Rincon, as I mentioned earlier, we're starting to develop a feel for Rincon as being another potential zone that could give us very, very close to 1 gram on average. And when you add that to the Veta de Oro zone, then we fully expect that that'll be between the two of them. That's about approximately 1.5 kilometers of continuous mineralization. The Japoneses zone, averaging, most of the resource in the 43-101 from last year originated from the Japoneses zone, an average of 0.5 gram for gold with a little bit of silver added to that. And then the Colorado zone, which was higher grades as well. This particular map is in the northwestern part of the concession, and it shows the relationship between the Rincon zone and the Veta de Oro zone. There's a 1 kilometer separation between the drill holes in that particular zone, but in between, we have sufficient surface samples, channel samples, rock chip samples, which indicate good high quality mineralization in this zone that hasn't been drilled yet. So our focus over the coming months will be in drilling from the Rincon zone towards the southeast to fill in the gap there. And we fully expect that we will be able to show mineralization of consequence between those two zones. Some of the grades you see there, 20 meters of 0.8 grams, 1.65 meters of 4 grams. We're getting extremely consistent mineralization in the Rincon zone and also the Beta de Oro zone. We have extremely high hopes for it. It's a sheeted vein zone that does seem to be projecting off to the northwest. Give you an idea of how easy this particular project is to mine. I'm giving you an idea here of the Buena Suerte zone, looking from the southwest towards the northeast. And it gives you where the high-grade zone of 45 meters of 0.97 grams with a little bit of silver, giving you a 1 gram of gold equivalent. That's in the northern part of the zone, and you can see several new dots on the left side of the screen there, which is where we're going to be doing some additional drilling. In fact, we're in the process of doing additional drilling in order to hopefully demonstrate that high grade continues to the north along strike. And the way that the lay of the land is situated here, it's easy to mine. You just mine into the hillside, so we don't see any great complications in being able to mine here. And I want to emphasize that all of the zones identified to date are shallow. Your mineralization is starting from surface, and we know that there's good mineralization down to at least an 80-meter depth. There are some holes that we've gone deeper that have showed mineralization deeper, but the idea of this initial program was to demonstrate the validity of our open pit heap leach type of potential, and I think we've admirably met that requirement for ourselves. Cross-section of Japoneses, once again, you have the Japoneses zone averaging out at 0.5 gram, but you do have pods of higher grade, as you see here, 6 meters of 2.8 grams, 39 meters of 0.884, and so on and so forth. So you will find these high pods situated in various parts of Japoneses. And Colorado is the one I mentioned to you in the southwestern part of the concession, where we're consistently generating high grades in Colorado. This cross-section shows you the drilling that was done last year. With these intercepts were incorporated into the 43-101, but they were mostly too far apart in order to generate a reasonable estimate of a resource there. But now we've gone in there, and I think we'll be announcing as many as 6 or 8 new holes there over the coming week. And by December the 15th, we'll probably have a grand total of 10 to 12 holes at Colorado. And we have high expectations for Colorado. So to summarize, what's the next step? Well, as I mentioned before, 11,000 meters of drilling between the core and the RC. And the final analysis on that will come out in the first week of January, by the time we get the assays back on the holes that we're drilling today and going into the next week. We will continue the drilling program into 2021, and the drilling will incorporate both the step out to expand the resource and also infill, because we're through the Leapfrog software, we're able to define where the holes in our drilling pattern are. And so that'll continue into 2021. We will also continue the drilling for the higher grade in the vein zones, and we have numerous targets in that respect. The environmental review process, first of all, the submission will occur in January of 2021, and it's expected to be about a 4-month process to go through the entire environmental review. So we're anticipating April as being when we would be able to get the approval process completed. The main components of the PEA will be the metallurgical testing, the 43-101 resource report. That all comes together once the metallurgical testing is completed and we've generated a recovery rate. And so that'll all be in the hands of Denim Engineering for April and complete the PEA. At that point, we should be well advanced, if not completed, with the engineering to develop a mine, and with mine construction estimated to start in May. And if that is the case, then we quantify, we would be able to project a start date for commercial production by the end of 2021. So that summarizes the main components of the technical program, and John will illustrate some of the other features that we're looking at going forward. John, your microphone is off. John, your microphone is, there we go.
Good. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. I can hear.
Good. Thank you. Well, everybody, at the end of Ken's presentation, I just wanted to touch on briefly where we think we are in terms of the financing, and then probably better to respond to questions and answers. We are continuing to have approaches from various parties to provide further equity financing and also project financing and potentially gold loans. And so as we move forward, we see it unfolding as follows, that come January, when we're able to have more information gathered and are able to make another presentation, we will be able to start identifying who will be the most likely participants to come into a project financing or a gold loan. And although we haven't determined yet in terms of further equity position, at some particular time, once we get the project underway for construction, if we want to continue an aggressive drilling program to expand the resource, we will need to look at it further equity. That may in some ways be wrapped up with some level of project debt financing, which we want to have as a limited recourse project debt. So that's fundamentally where we are on the financial side, and I think it's probably best to turn this over to questions rather than anticipate what may be asked. Brandon, can you take care of the quick questions here?
Sure. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask, now's the time to use that raise your hand icon, and we'll answer. We'll get to, so Tuki's got a question here. We'll Tuki, if you can unmute, then we'll let you ask your question there.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
We can, Tuki.
Good. Have you any rough, and I maybe mean rough idea, height of, or the size of CapEx you're going to have here, a ballpark figure?
Tuki, we are doing our own internal studies, which will find their way through to the guys putting together the PEA. And in terms of the orders of magnitude, it's a little difficult to make a comment on something that remains internal. So I'm trying to answer this in a way that it's not going to be a significant amount, simply because this is essentially an open pit operation. And we're effectively moving earth as opposed to being involved in the construction of a larger underground operation. So I think the best way to comment on this is we would regard it as being potentially subject to a lot of due diligence, etc., of the order of $12 to $15 million, depending on the level of production. But that number should be forthcoming in the near future.
Very good.
We do have a question regarding what impact COVID has had on our operations, and I'm happy to state that we haven't lost a day of operations due to COVID. All of our technical teams are based in Mexico, based in Hermosillo mainly, and so there's no need for cross-border travel. The drilling company is all based in Hermosillo, and their staff are based in Hermosillo. So consequently, we've been effectively unaffected by the COVID issue. What do you see as posing the most significant risks to you? Well, that's always a good question. I'd say that obviously the biggest risk would be financing. Yeah, and so currently with an $1,830, $1,850 gold price, I don't think financing is going to be that difficult to attain, especially when the economics are put together on the project. And So I would say if gold were to crash down to $1,500, that's a different story. Maybe people will start to take a different approach to the project. But we've had a very, very good response on the financing. Lots of interest being shown on funding the building of an open pit heap leach plant and the leach pad to go with it. And so that would be the number one priority as far as I'm concerned. Permitting is also obviously an issue that we have to take very seriously. But Sonora State has traditionally been a very, very mining-friendly jurisdiction. Our people are in touch with the SEMERNAT people who will provide the environmental permitting. And so we haven't seen any showstoppers or any kind of ability to delay at this point in time. So these would be the two main features. And John, do you have any other showstoppers that you would like to bring up?
No, but I would like to address this matter of the project financing and potential equity financing. We regularly receive unsolicited offers to put together financing packages, to which we respond. We provide as much information as possible and effectively convey that we'll be in a better position to talk to them in the latter half of January as opposed to now. So I'm very encouraged by the degree of interest that's being shown, the questions that are posed, and when we've done our research on the potential debt providers or gold loan providers, and these come from basically around the world, not just North America, but out of the UK, Europe, Asia, Australia. They all have a common theme, and the part that I believe appeals to the project finances is that an operation that commences at the tail end of next year, based upon a very robust economics, has a strong appeal to the investors, because they can understand, the project lenders, they understand that the difference between an open pit heap leach operation as opposed to an underground hard rock operation is like night and day in terms of timing and the risk factor. So I don't regard financing as a major risk, as an element we have to deal with. And I think we're going to have the luxury of being able to select what is best for us. And the criteria we put forward, it must be limited recourse and one that we totally understand, and of course the legitimacy of funds. So Ken, it is a risk, but I don't regard this as being a high risk. I regard this as being another matter of fact job that needs to be put in place.
Right. The next question I found is, what's the cash position at this point in time? And we have sufficient cash on hand to complete our goals for completing the PEA. In other words, we'll continue to drill and expand upon the resource, and that we have sufficient money to pay the property payments and for the first quarter of 2021, plus complete the PEA, i.e. the metallurgical testing, the resource report, and the PEA itself. At that point, we will sit down and determine how the project is going to be funded going forward, because if we're able to raise project financing at that point, it's obvious that some of that project finance would be applied towards the equity component as well. And so I would say by March of 2021, April 2021, we should be looking at determining whether the financing for the project financing will be sufficient to continue the drilling program, or whether we have to do a separate equity raise at that time. And then there's another question that has arisen is, we've been impacted by the cartels. And we definitely have not been directly impacted. We know there's activity going on in the region. It is not as severe as some other parts of Mexico. But we do hear occasional story about activity taking place in Hermosillo and the surrounding area. We are near the border after all. We're only about an hour and a half drive from the border at Nogales. So I don't think any part of Mexico is spared the curse of the cartels. So but it has not affected our operations in any way, shape, or form.
Well, if there's no more questions, does anybody else have any questions? Feel free to unmute or to put them on. Oh, we've got some
There's
here.
one here, and oh, I lost it.
While we're waiting for that, I'd like to make a comment here, which I think affects all of us, our shareholders and ourselves. One thing that we have said throughout this project from when we started is that we would jealously guard dilution, and therefore we are very circumspect in how we approach things. And we recognize the importance of marketing. That's important to shareholders to understand the value of their investment. And I would put it forward in this way, is that Sonoro offers basically the best of both worlds. The upside would be is if we are able to identify the higher grade deposited depth. That would change the scenario a lot. But the downside is a very, very attractive downside that we continue to expand the resource. We find ourselves with a grade almost double what we anticipated or contemplated at the beginning. And we are able potentially, because of the expansion of the resource, commence an operation at double the level as we did before. So all these factors are coming into play. And in the marketplace, we do not have outrageous hyping promotion. We're looking to advance the share price based upon fundamentals. And one of the delays that we encountered this year was beyond our control. That was COVID, because that meant that instead of assays coming back to us within the usual 1 to 2 weeks, it was taking a couple of months or more. So we have not been able to release the results as quickly as we had hoped we'd do. So as we move forward, I would expect that in the January period, when we're able to pull together all the results from the drilling program to date, that is the shallow drilling, the deeper drilling, be able to have confidence that we're moving forward with the 41 NI 43-101 resource, move forward with the metallurgy results coming out, move forward with the PEA. We will see a recognition of the company's move towards production. And some comments that have been made to me, and it may well have been in your minds as well, is this company capable of taking the project through to production? And in that regard, I would ask you to consider the property, the people, the policy that we've had. And from day one, where we had declared our objective is to get to production as quickly as possible, to generate cash flow, and use that cash flow to further expand the operations. The comments that we've had from people, well, are you really going to do that? Or are you just talking about doing it? And we're hoping that the last 2 news releases, which address directly the move towards production, will start to give people that comfort that this company, Sonoro, although it may be small, it has a strong management, technical team, a composition of directors who have probably a quarter of a century involved in such projects, who have successfully taken projects to production. So combine all those features together with the dedication and determination and the fact that the insiders hold together about 21% of the shares. We're fully committed to go to production. And as a shareholder joining us now, your comfort level should be that we're heavily motivated, we're totally dedicated, we're not involved in another company. This is our sole objective, to take this to production. And finally, remember there's another property which we don't speak about too much, which is called San Marcial, which potentially may have a similar development of a resource, similar to Cerro Caliche. So in this, it's a matter that we are conducting ourselves, I think, in a professional way. We are endeavoring to advance the company, and we would expect it to be reflected in the share price as we continue to deliver. And those who still have maybe some doubt and sitting on the sidelines, are we actually going to go to production? The next 3 or 4 months will answer that question totally. Thank you.
Thanks, John. We got another question from Tuki. Do you want to, Tuki, are you available? You can, there you go, Tuki. If you can unmute and ask your question.
There you go. Two things. How, at some point, you're going to stop the shallower drilling and concentrate on getting cash flow. When would you end that? And the next question is, what's the status of the core drilling on the potentially higher grade target?
I couldn't quite hear that. Ken, could you hear that question?
No, I couldn't. The last part of it I caught on. That was what's the status of the high grade targeting drilling, and I think the first one, at what point? And correct me if I'm wrong, Tuki, but I think at what point do you stop drilling through an equity raise and focus on generating revenue through the cash flow from the operation? Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. As far as the revenue from the operation is concerned, if we're successful as we project here for getting into production by the last quarter of 2021, and it will more than likely be December, based upon our internal numbers, then production will start or cash flow will start in 2022 in the first quarter. And so I don't think we should be sitting on our laurels in March, April of this year and say we don't need to do any more drilling, because the potential for this property is immense. I believe at this point that we have only investigated at the very most 20% of the prospective mineralization on this property here. So it behooves us to continue drilling. And if through the stroke of good fortune that the 43-101 in April comes out and demonstrates a much higher resource, larger resource, maybe even a richer resource than what we had in the prior 43-101, I don't think we should sit down and say enough's enough. We've got enough of a resource now. The goal for us is to demonstrate the potential for the property. And as we put out in May or June of 2020, based upon an internal report that we made public, the potential for the property is over between 60 and 100 million tons, grading between 0.3 and 0.5. While at the higher end of that scale, you're looking at 1.6 to 1.8 million potential ounces. I don't think that's beyond the realm of reason as far as this property is concerned. So we should continue to drill. So hopefully that'll answer that aspect of it. And the other one would be, what about the high-grade drilling? The interesting thing with the high-grade drilling was once we started using the core rig to try to demonstrate the higher grades, we got sidetracked because we determined very, very quickly that metallurgical testing was an urgency. That was, in order for us to go into production next year, we had to divert the core rig from HQ to PQ drilling. And so we drilled a total of 11 holes, a total of 7 million tons of core for metallurgical testing, of which we sent 5.5 million tons to the lab. And so that took up a lot of the rig's time, of the core rig's time. But we have been finding, and I think next week, if we wait for the results to come in from El Colorado next week, I'm hopeful that we'll start to demonstrate some of the potential higher grades that we've been looking for in the property. And so I'd rather hold my tongue until next week and comment on it next week. But as far as reaching out and getting some of the deeper, higher grades, we do have quite a few targets on the property ready for drilling in that respect. So we will continue to investigate what we call the high grade, where we're certainly we're getting higher grades than we had experienced before in earlier drilling.
So we have a news release, Tookie, out. It's planned for next Tuesday, where the focus will be on the higher grade targeting. And in our last news release, in Mel's comments, he basically hinted there what we were finding. And I think that would be more forthcoming next week. But so again, this certainly is being pursued. And there'll be more to be released when we have some further assays.
Any further questions? Well, thank you, folks. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today. I look forward to updating you continuously as we proceed over the coming months. And obviously, our door is open at any time for us to communicate with you one-on-one. But we can certainly hold some more webinars as material information is released. And so I would suggest in January, if we circle back, all of us, and review all the drill results to that date. So let's say middle of January, if we hold another webinar to update you at that point, that would be an appropriate time to really get the full picture of what we expect going forward in the next edition of the 43101.
Okay, well, again, I'll echo what Ken said. Thank you for participating here and the questions. And again, we're open at all time for approaches. We can arrange a one-on-one or a group call. It'll be a pleasure to do that. And in the meanwhile, we will consistently update our website. The presentation that Ken has just made will soon be on our website. So again, thank you very much indeed for joining us and your time.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night.